everybody, it's Andrea from CoroWare here with Chuck House, author of the book The HP Phenomenon, Innovation and Business Transformation. He is here with us for a quick interview. Just a little introduction of who Chuck House is. He's the Executive Director of Innovascapes Institute, following a role of Chancellor of Cogswell Polytechnical College after 5 years as Executive Director at Stanford Media X. So how are you today, Chuck?
I'm good. Happy to be with you.
We're happy to have you. I wanted to talk to you about your book that you wrote along with co-author Raymond Price about Hewlett-Packard.
Okay, sure.
Book details on many different transformations that went through, as well as the challenges that were faced. And the entire book basically goes along with the theme of innovation and David Packard's observation, which is that change and conflict are only the real constants. Could you speak a little bit on that?
Well, sure. The classic quote is Mark Twain's quote that says, death and taxes are the two things we all have to face. Yeah. Dave was giving a talk one time in Fort Collins, Colorado, and he said, actually, those are minor individual events. Death and taxes. He says the real lasting issues are in fact what you just said, change and conflict. And he says those that create a set of changes, and win, he says they're usually the most resistant to the next change.
Yeah.
They won and now they have to fight for it. It's kind of an amusing way of thinking about innovation. And then he went on to say that, one of the difficulties with innovation is that it really, you wind up fighting yourself. He said it'd be a lot better if we fight our competitors than fight among ourselves.
Right.
So, the book tries to really look at a question that I think gets in the way of most corporations. And that is, you go out and you build a company and you build it on some set of products or services, and you get really good at those. And the question is, how do you renew that corporation when those areas become either mature or stagnant or something like that? And the difficulty is very often you wind up fighting the entrenched interests much more than you really wind up concentrating on the external market. So the book deals with how did HP do that? Did they do it more successfully than some others? And are there rules we can take away for today's businesses wherever we are?
Yes, and the book as well also touches on how they did that, like different topics such as innovation, transformation, having flexibility, and dealing with the conflict.
Sure.
And so all those things that was dealt with, is there one that's more important than the others for the success of Hewlett-Packard or for any company at that? Or do you think they all work and come together at the end?
Let me put some context on this. If you take renewal as the idea, or transformation as the idea that your main business line at any given time, if you look 10 years later, if it's a different business, then you've been transformed. So Boeing, for example, was building airplanes in 1915. In 2015, they'll still be known as an airplane company. That's hardly a transformation. IBM was building mainframe enterprise computing in 1937. They're still building that today as their main line. Cisco started as a router company. It's still a router company. Intel started doing semiconductor chips and memory and then microprocessors. That's what they do today. So those aren't transformative. Those are evolutionary.
Yeah.
What HP did was transform itself 6 times in 6 decades. We've only found 2 other companies that you could say that about, and they did like 3 times in 80 years. Motorola and IBM did that. So it's really hard to do this transformation. And so what we focused on in the book, and what I do in my research and our workshops, is really look for what are the drivers that either get in the way or help enhance this innovative transformation.
Okay, so what's overcome, I guess.
You've probably heard about Jeffrey Moore's Crossing the Chasm.
Yeah.
That's a thesis where the early adopters of a new technology aren't the same kind of attitude or same people that would be the majority adopters later. And so there's this gulf between these early techno nerds, if you will, and the later, great unwashed herd that has the money. And so he talks about that chasm. Well, we talk about several chasms. There's a chasm between the funds of a company's profits getting back into research to build products that replace those products. So you've got to have somebody willing to cannibalize in that respect. And so I call that a funding chasm. There's also a chasm in terms of who are the people that think out of the box versus those that think in the box. So this is kind of if you will, an imagination chasm or an innovator's chasm. People talk about entrepreneurs, but entrepreneurs don't worry inside a corporation. The entrepreneur inside a company has a much tougher job because they have to talk the company into wanting the innovations they've already created. And then that third chasm is you run into all these people that are busy protecting today's products, and they see this as disruptive. So those are all issues that get in the way, and HP found some interesting mechanisms to get around that.
Yeah, and it proves why they're successful.
Yeah. So one of the fun things, HP had 6 transformations. Dave Packard resisted every one of them. When laser printers and inkjet printers came along, his secretary quoted him. This is astonishing. It was $1 billion in business for HP, and he gets quoted as saying, "Oh, I think carbon paper is good enough."
Wow. Yeah, well, I guess having someone challenging also inside the business also creates that success and that innovation part. Someone who's always, I guess, resistant to change is always good to have in your team.
So the book's been out now almost 4 years. Actually, just about 4 years. It's sold out the initial print run just about, so that's great. It was the 3rd best-selling Stanford business book in history.
Yeah.
Now that isn't a very high bar because Stanford isn't known for its business books. But we went with Stanford Press because HP was a spin out of Stanford, like Cisco and Sun and so many other, Google and Yahoo and all that more recently. And there are no other strategic history books about HP, so it's really been a fun project for us.
And it's very useful for anybody in business, entrepreneurs, engineers. It provides a lot of advice, stories, philosophies, lessons. And just to wrap up the interview, I wanted to know, out of everything that you talk about in your book, what would you say is the most important for readers to take away?
What would I say is the most important?
It's
kind of a twin statement that management needs to empower the kids. The kids closest to the customer, and let them have their head and build things and let the market prove to the management what ought to be done.
Nice.
Fair?
Yeah, it's really good advice, actually.
Thank you for the chance to talk with you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for joining us here at CoroWare's blog.
Okay, bye-bye.